Great, I appreciate it, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I want to thank FMC for asking me to come MC this incredible event. And it struck me as I was listening to the senators speak and to Senator Dorgan speak that there's a lot that you guys in this room and me as a journalist and my colleagues in the industry have in common. There's three things that really stand out. We all have a love for the institutions in this country that are what make this country America, whether that's Congress for you, whether that's the White House, whether that's the institution of democracy. My colleague Chuck Todd, who hosts Meet the Press, which you should watch, said to me when I first started my job as chief White House correspondent for NBC News, he said, you know, you're going to love the job, it's going to be an incredible experience for you, but the day that you walk through those security gates and you approach the doors of the West Wing and you don't get a little thrill in your stomach, you don't get a little bit of butterflies out of respect for this building, out of respect for the history of this building, that's when you know you got to walk away. And I think that speaks to what a lot of us feel as we cover this moment in politics, a respect for the history of this country, for the moment that we're in. And that brings me to the second thing that we have in common. Serving something, I think, as journalists and you as former members, as people in the diplomatic corps, serving a cause that's bigger than yourself. Working towards something that means something to you and that will leave a little bit of you behind when you go on to your next adventure. And that is something that I do think members of the media feel when we're covering the political sphere. And so I would say that the third thing we have in common, and if Senator Burr is still here, respectfully would quibble a little bit with what he says about the media not liking bipartisanship. I do think there are journalists who want to cover moments of bipartisanship. As you know, those moments are fewer and farther between. And that is sort of the moment in time that we are in, where partisanship is something that certainly gets clicks, it gets headlines, it gets views. Bipartisanship, as the speakers ahead of me have noted, get results. And that is what we're here to celebrate today. That is what we're here to honor. That is why FMC asked me to come talk with some of the people that we will be celebrating and honoring tonight. The theme of the evening is citizenship, the power of citizenship in the 21st century, what it means to work together, what it means to be a leader in this moment. There's a group of people, in addition to the senators, that we will recognize tonight because they showcase on a daily basis the values that FMC holds dear and that all of you are here to recognize. Public service, supporting the community, civic engagement, the power of being able to come together and find solutions. FMC has a number of honorees that we will talk about tonight, that we will talk with tonight, and I'm thrilled to be able to conduct that conversation. I want to start with our corporate honoree. The Lufthansa Group is represented tonight by its CEO, Carsten Spohr, who wins the award for longest commute to dinner. He flew in all the way from Germany to be here with us tonight. Please. And you'll hear this come up again and again in our conversation, the idea of citizenship, and specifically corporate citizenship. And for Lufthansa, as FMC has noted, this has been at the core of its value system for a very long time here. There's been a focus on strengthening STEM education, initiatives like the Help Alliance Foundation. That's a global engagement of Lufthansa and its employees. It's meant to empower education and entrepreneurship. FMC wants to especially recognize Lufthansa for something that you may not know about, the immediate and invaluable assistance that the company provided to Puerto Rico after the hurricane there, after Hurricane Maria. As soon as planes could land again on the island after that storm blew through, Lufthansa had been working tirelessly with local, federal, international partners to be ready to send one of its cargo planes with 90 tons of supplies. Since the hurricane, Lufthansa has installed a first-of-its-kind apprentice program to bring education and opportunity and real jobs to people in Puerto Rico and people in the region who needed them. So, Mr. Spohr, FMC wishes to thank you for everything that Lufthansa has done to be a bridge builder between the US and Europe, and FMC wants to present you with the 2019 Corporate Statesmanship Award. Thank you for all you do.
Well,
when she gives you the award, go to the center for your photo.
thank you very much. As a foreigner, obviously, I received a briefing for tonight, and I was told if you receive an award in Washington, you have 2 minutes to say thank you. Since I did come from Germany all the way for this, I was going to ask you for 3, but as I just learned, it only doesn't allow you to have an extra minute when you come from across the Atlantic. You also get extra minutes when you come from across the street. So allow me to say a few words. It's a great honor for us to be here in Washington, and it's a great honor for me, representing 135,000 Lufthansa Group employees around the world. And being the first airline group indeed to receive this award makes all of us extremely proud. At Lufthansa, corporate citizenship is at the part of our DNA. And we want to make a difference, and we want to give back. And we do this, I believe, in meaningful ways. One, by investing in our workforce and in our training. And just, for example, when we opened our maintenance, repair, and overhaul company, Lufthansa Technik in Puerto Rico, we were able to train and to employ 400 people there alone. And there we have established first ever US registered apprenticeship program for this very specialized work which we do there, and we have been able to do that together with the US Department of Labor and the University of Puerto Rico. But we also do this, as mentioned, by standing side by side with our communities when they need us most, and either to build or to rebuild. And when Hurricane Maria indeed struck Puerto Rico in 2017, it didn't take long for us in Lufthansa to mobilize. And through our continued commercial success, we feel an increased responsibility for society and for the environment. And therefore, we continuously invest in the latest and most advanced aircraft. Just last week, we ordered 20 modern and fuel-efficient Boeing 787s and a few Airbus as well. And we invest a lot of money in green technology. We want to go to zero emission of all of our mobility on the ground within the next years. A lot of money is going into environmental and innovative projects. But also, as very nicely mentioned, we have our own charity organization, Help Alliance, where we are committed to social and humanitarian causes worldwide. And I'm very pleased to announce here tonight on this occasion for the first time that Lufthansa will expand its commitment right here in the US through establishing Help Alliance Americas. And thank you. And through this initiative, we will support social projects that promote US-German friendship, education, training, humanitarian, and emergency aid relief. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to give back, and we want to build even more bridges between our great countries. And in this regard, allow me to say a few personal words about my experience embracing US-German relations, especially in times like this, which are not always easy. It was 35 years ago, I wish it was 25 years ago, it was 35 years ago when I was part of the US Congress German Parliament exchange program as a high school student. And I came to this country to spend a whole year here in the US. What a great program, please keep it alive. And it was the summer in '84 when 400 German students gathered at Frankfurt Airport to start their transatlantic adventure. Many of them, including myself, crossing the Atlantic for the first time. And we were all distributed on the various, of course, Lufthansa flights. And in my case, that was Lufthansa 454 to San Francisco. At those days, operating 3 times a week. As I stand here now as the CEO of Lufthansa, we operate to San Francisco 3 times a day. And that, I think, shows how we have built and increased the transatlantic bridge over the years. And in that following year in California, I not only had a great time with my American host family, I also experienced firsthand that our 2 countries are built upon common values and common rights. And our joint history allows us a unique and solid foundation built on trust, friendship, and freedom. And this experience has influenced my understanding of our transatlantic partnership until today, standing here in this wonderful occasion. And I'm very, very proud that I can pay back for that experience now on the helm of a major transatlantic player. Ladies and gentlemen, in this belief, I promise that we at Lufthansa will continue to build bridges by connecting people, by connecting businesses across the Atlantic with our, by now, 100 flights a day, 22 gateways in the US, and every day, 25,000 passengers moving from one part of the Atlantic to the other. And that is probably every day, including some exchange students who will contribute to the relationship of our great countries in the decades to come. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of 135,000 Lufthansa employees around the world and 15,000 employees here in the US alone, I'm very, very honored to join you here this evening to celebrate citizenship. Thank you very much.
The chairman's going to take a seat for our conversation later on. What did you, oh, your award, please. Hold tight to that one. Tonight's final award is the House Statesmanship Award, and it is presented to FMC from the organization to the Problem Solvers Caucus. I want to welcome to the stage Congressman Tom Reed of New York and Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey to accept the award on behalf of the caucus, which they co-chair. You probably know what the caucus is. They bring together 46 lawmakers divided equally between Republicans and Democrats to work together across the aisle to find solutions on really tough issues. We're talking about health care, immigration. Members commit to seeking bipartisan answers, and they only endorse legislation when a minimum of 75% of the caucus supports the bill. So, for example, that includes the procedural reform package passed by the House earlier this year. FMC is pleased to recognize Congressman Gottheimer, Congressman Reed with the 2019 House Statesmanship Award, and I look forward to our conversation coming up in just a moment. So, gentlemen, please come to the stage.
Thank you. Whoa, Haley! Hey! Oompa!
We meant that to happen. We have another award just backstage.
We have a problem.
We're gonna have
we solved it.
Which one was that? Oh, that was so funny. I was pulled it together.
Which one was it?
Oh, it's yours.
That's me.
Wait, does anyone have any crazy glue? We're good. This is yours.
Yeah, get them from. Kelly, that's priceless.
Great. That was great, by the way. That was great. I know. I should crack mine now, too.
No, don't do that.
Okay, here we go. Well, you go first.
Well, thank you, Haley. That was very
Wait, there's nothing on the prompter for you. Can you?
There's
do you need
no
to see
prompter.
The prompter?
I got to put this thing back together.
Here, I'll hold it.
It's
I'll
like
hold
DC.
it.
We're rebuilding it. So, well, thank you very much for this award and for recognizing the efforts of the Problem Solvers Caucus. And I will just tell you, being up here with Josh, I can tell you that bipartisanship, friendship, as many of the former members here know, is really important in DC, and it's more important, even more so today. And so I'm proud to be here with my friend. And you all know sometimes in DC, saying friend means something derogatory. You know, the more friendship you refer to someone is oftentimes on the floor of the house. You're such a good friend. But Josh is a good friend, and we've developed a true friendship. And the Problem Solvers Caucus is filled with members that do have that friendship, that do have that relationship of trust that many of you here as former members of Congress know needs to exist in the chamber, and needs to exist in Washington. So I am humbled to receive this award on behalf of the Problem Solvers Caucus on the Republican side, but it's not about us. It's about these members, and it's about colleagues like the folks at No Labels, who I know are here today with Nancy Jacobson and her team. If you could give them a round of applause, because they have been at our back day in and day out to make this a reality. So thank you, Nancy, and to the No Labels folks. We really appreciate what you do for us. And without further ado, the best member of Congress,
yeah, I'll hold this for you.
Josh Gottheimer.
Did you hold this one?
Okay, no, I got it.
You got
Go
it.
ahead.
Don't mess it up.
Josh Gottheimer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there a stool here? I got to start.
I'll solve another problem.
Thank you very much. This is much better. I first want to thank my really dear friend, Tom. It was nice. We were just backstage there talking, and what you realize is we actually have gotten to know each other's families very well. We talk at least once a day, every single day, which is obviously disconcerting on several levels. But what we've learned in the caucus through the last couple years doing this together is that, and I think the former members who are here, who we're very grateful to be following, it's all about trust and relationships. And you can't solve a problem if you can't sit across from the table from someone and actually be candid and try to figure out where you can agree. And if you insist on getting everything you want every time, you'll never get anything done. And that's really the conclusion we've come to. We've been able to get together and get so much done working with the caucus because of that. And we have several members of the Problem Solvers Caucus who are here today, including our Vice Chairman, Tom Suozzi, who's in the front. But will all the Problem Solvers Caucus members stand up for a second so we give you a big round of applause? Believe it or not, we had a meeting this morning. We get together every week. We're in Washington, and we talk about what we agree on versus what we disagree. There is plenty to disagree on, as you all know. There's plenty to scream at. And as someone said earlier, it doesn't always make for the best television when you actually agree and try to find a common ground. But I think all the former members who are here and the diplomatic corps here understand that if you're going to get things done, you actually governing, right, and then the center is not always as sexy as other parts. But, you know, I think Tom looks pretty good.
Okay, that's starting another scandal. All right, right there. Very good. No, but at the end of the day, what we stand for in the Problem Solvers Caucus is what I think all the former members here and members of the Diplomatic Corps represent, is that you came to Washington to help people. And what we're trying to do is to change the culture of Washington, D.C., break this gridlock, and at the end of the day, do the work for the American people that sent us here. And we're just blessed to be a voice for those American people. So thank you very much.
Hold on to your thing. Hold it. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
How's that award doing, Congressman?
Oh, we'll fix it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We're thrilled to be able to have a bit of a conversation here with the chairman, with the members of Congress that are here to talk about not just bipartisanship and not just leadership and friendship in your instance, but also citizenship and what it means to be a global citizen in the 21st century. I was told you all wanted to talk about Robert Mueller first off the bat, right? No? No.
I'll take a swing at it. No, I'm just kidding.
We do want to get into a bit of a discussion here about your roles and how you see yourself as leaders in this space, because that is why you're here and that is why you're accepting this award. And so, Chairman, I'll start with you specifically on the idea of global leadership. You announced that amazing initiative to help build out in the Americas some of the give-backs that you do around the world. Talk through how you view being a global leader in this moment in history.
Well, I think globalization is the mega trend of our times. I think if something has changed over the last decades is that this planet has become a smaller place, which sometimes creates new problems and sometimes helps to solve problems. And my personal view is bringing people together, making people exchange views across culture, across nations is the best way to make this world a better place. And what better way is there than actually connect people, which is what we do in aviation. And usually when I give a speech and I don't receive an award, so I don't have to be as modest as I had to be today, I usually say that we are the good guys of globalization because we share that positive element of globalization for as many people as we can. Whereas in other elements of globalization, people are afraid that it could be to their disadvantage, that it has to be stopped. Protectionism has to come into place in this country and where I'm from. And this, I think, is the wrong way. And by bringing people together, I think we are developing global citizenship, which I think is a wonderful thing for the next generation to build on.
And on the topic of citizenship globally and here in this country, Congressman, how do you see your role as helping to develop that in your district, with your constituents, with the people that you talk to?
Go ahead.
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to listen to people, especially in this day and age when information is flowing so fast and coming at you from all different angles. And so you need to listen to their concerns. You got to really take it to heart and then really try to force the dialogue that I think needs to occur here more often. And I think in the Problem Solvers Caucus, that's what we do the best. You know, we're proud Republicans. I'm a proud Republican. I'm not afraid to say that publicly. I'm not afraid to shout that from the mountaintops because I believe in what the Republican Party stands for. But I'm willing to stay in the room with a proud Democrat and stay in that room until we can find common ground and listen to each other and understand where each side is coming from. And we do that with our district. We encourage folks back in the district to do that. We're trying to lead by that example. And you know, we have our town halls, we have our weekly press calls because we want to make sure people know that, you know what, we can shout and scream at each other all day long, but if we do that, nothing gets done, and all you're doing is not solving problems, you're creating more problems.
I agree. I just think it's what people want, what I hear back home, and I think all the members of the caucus here, because we talk about it a lot, is they want us to actually figure things out, right? They know we have real challenges and great opportunities, and we can't just come here and do nothing. They expect us to come here and get things done for them.
There is a perception, though, I think, for a lot of people in the country that Congress isn't doing much. I think people feel frustrated generally at this idea that Congress seems to be stuck. That is not new, necessarily. The former members who are here know that they have probably been through that as well. Do you get frustrated? And what do you do in those moments when you're talking the bipartisan talk, but nobody's actually walking the bipartisan walk?
You know, that is one of the things that we're trying to set a new bar for, is that it's easy to talk the talk of bipartisanship, but we're actually walking the walk. These Problem Solver Caucus members are taking votes. You know, we stood together, had each other's back as they went into the rule reform negotiations with the speaker coming in. You know, former members in here understand, you know, to withhold your vote for the speaker of your party in order to negotiate something good for the institution, the good for America, is difficult. Is difficult to do because you're changing the way DC operates. And you know what I hope that demonstrates is that these are the true leaders, and this is what we're trying to do.
But yes, definitely get frustrated. And what's really frustrating is there's plenty of things we actually do get done all the time, and I think the former members know this, that they just don't get covered. Right, because we
over opioids bill, for example.
Right, we've got on opioids bill, on criminal justice reform. We got done together. We've the Problem Solvers got together on certain budget agreements to help push them through and keep off riders that would drag them down. And there's on this rules reform package, it's not. I get it. It's not as exciting as some of the screaming matches. But these things get done. There's just in the last couple of weeks, we got a bipartisan amendment passed coming together, and on campaign finance issues, and it doesn't all get covered, and that's actually what can be frustrating, because then when you go home, people say you're doing nothing. You say, actually, we have moved the ball on these several issues, and it's only because we're taking the steps. And I know the other things, the noise, gets more attention, but actually we are in the room working on these things, and we just got to keep going, because I think that's what people expect from us and what we're supposed to be doing.
So, Chairman, what about your frustrations in the global space when you're looking at how to inspire people to be more of a better global citizen?
No, I think any leader needs to have a certain ability to live with frustration. Otherwise, you probably give up leadership fairly soon. When I listen to this, I sometimes wonder, I've always, as a visitor to this country and somebody who lived here, was sometimes jealous how large this country and powerful is, that you don't have to worry too much about what's happening outside. These domestic issues, I think, would be easier solved if the country was smaller and you had to worry more what's happening outside, and you would have less focus on those domestic affairs. So I think making the world smaller also probably means that the US has to deal more with those things happening outside, and the frustration level actually might be less, because there's so many things outside which force us to solve problems inside. But the frustration of things going too slow, of the frustration of sometimes finding compromises which we all think take too long, I think is a key element of leadership, at least of leadership which is based on empowerment of either people like you who have been voted, or somebody like me who has shareholders, staff, and customers to worry about. So only leadership which is basically somehow legible is what causes frustration. Those who just accept leadership because they propose it on their own might not worry about it, but that's not what we believe in. So I think that is part of what we have to live in a world where people have to be convinced to be led. I think the days are over that you can just execute leadership without convincing the people where you lead them. I think those days don't exist anymore. Social media, people being better educated. We have to live with the fact that we need to convince those we want to lead.
Yes.
All of you have stakeholders. All of you have these people that you need to bring on board with you. You talked about doing it through social media, through some of these sort of more public ways. Chairman, how do you two find your stakeholders and get them on board?
Well, we engage, and we're not afraid to take some of these hard positions, and as I was saying, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, and it's by communicating, and it's truly by listening. I think that is one of the things that I get frustrated the most down here in D.C. is people don't take the time just to listen. Right. You know, you got 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. And John Boehner, who's a mentor of mine, and who history I think will judge him much better than maybe people judge him today, taught me that, is to try to listen more, observe more before you speak. But by engaging people, getting them to participate, that will allow democracy to flourish.
I think this is a very, very important point. And one of the things that I think Tom and I and the members of the caucus have learned, when we've taken on these issues, and you mentioned before, we have to get to 75% of us agreeing in order to get behind a piece of legislation or get behind an idea. And it's tough, right? Imagine you can't get 2 people to agree, getting this big group of people to agree, and 75% of us agree on something, and is challenging. It takes hours upon hours upon hours, 30, 40, 50 hours of work, sitting in a room. Usually we get together after our evening schedule, 8, 9 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning. We put up whiteboards, just members of Congress sitting in a room saying, and I hope the 4 members appreciate this, because I'm sure they did plenty of this. And it takes the patience and the time to if you're going to get somewhere, get to that agreement, to go through it. And we always say to each other, if America could see this, they'd feel a lot better about the process, because that's when you really feel great pride that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And what Tom said is what the eureka moments are always when you hear if you presume what the other side thinks, you're always going to get it wrong, right? Because you'll just assume there's a reason why they're not behind something. But if you listen, you realize, oh, I didn't realize that's their issue. Oh, I can get on board with their issue.
But to even get those people in the room in the first place, and this speaks to what the 3 of us had a conversation about backstage, you have to have personal relationships. There has to be a level of trust. That has been a theme that we've heard about tonight, that you've heard about in your lives in the diplomatic corps as former members. Chairman, talk about how you try to develop those personal relationships with people who you may not see eye to eye with, but who you need to compromise with in order to actually get something done.
Well, when I talk about leadership within Lufthansa, I always use 3 terms. Leadership for me is about having an ambition to improve something, a country, a company, a relationship. There needs to be responsibility, because when you execute leadership, you have power, so you need to be very responsible. That's why I talked a little bit about values in my little speech. I think joint values, the right values of this country, of a company, are very important. And the third thing is empathy. You need to understand what the people you lead, or you're supposed to lead with, think. And I think that doesn't matter if you're in politics or in the corporate world, to understand what people expect, how they look at you in terms of honesty, can they really believe what you are saying, I think is key to execute leadership. And to bring that across to the next generation maybe is then the next element, because we're all in our positions only for a certain part of our life, and it's about having the next generation in place, like the senator said, to hand over in a better state, be it a company, be it a congressional district, be it a whole country. I think that's what I think leadership is we are supposed to be doing.
The flip side of when we talk about bipartisanship, of course, is partisanship. And there are those who see purpose in partisanship and passion in partisanship. And it is a driver on both sides of the aisle for creating political change and creating political progress. In both of your parties, I know that you've run up against that in various ways. How do you deal with it? How do you get past some of that?
I think you just keep challenging that extremism that often that voice represents. And partisan is not necessarily, you got to remember, a lot of these members, ideologically and philosophically, they have a position, they have folks that they represent that they have to be held accountable to. And so, what we try to do is just recognize that you're going to have that. But we're going to call out, the institutions that perpetuate this, the social media, outside groups that are raising money at $5 a clip, sending out emails that are thriving off this industry of partisanship and division. But at the end of the day, I think what we're tapping into, the greatest strength that we have, is that the silent voice of America is awakening. And it's saying, look it, enough, get something done. The country is facing huge obstacles, huge problems on the horizon. And if we stay divided, as Abraham Lincoln said, a house that is divided against itself will not stand. And we need to start uniting people and respecting people again and lead people in the way that I think Josh and the Problem Solvers Caucus members believe. Is we respect each other, we're willing to have the debate, but at the end of the day, we're in this ship, we're on this ship together.
And that's the whole point, right? I mean, I think Tom just really captured that. You have to, if you can have strong views, right? And I think Tom and I both have strong views. We have points of view, and the members of the caucus do as well. But the question is, are you willing to, for the sake of moving the country forward and governing, are you willing to say, I'll take 80 or 90% of my strong view, not insist on 100% of my strong view, and will I sit at the table and talk to one another to get it done, especially in an era of divided government?
So how do you get your colleagues on board with that, Congressman, particularly in this moment?
I think our job is to go member to member and show that we're, and by the way, you should see when we get things, we've gotten a bunch of things done, suddenly the members come out, and this is, I think they're part of the silent middle too, or this, right, who say, wow, you actually got something done. You worked together and you got something done. What are you doing over there?
We have some new members that have joined the caucus, and after the first 4 to 5 meetings came back and like, this is the best thing I do down here. I have, I get here, they divide us, and we have to go raise money, we have to go do this, and it's us versus them all the time. We have a safe forum where we have a culture of trust, where we have a dialogue, and most members, those freshman members as well as older members, will say, this is what I came here to do. I came here to have this debate and find that common.
And part of that's changed, right, over time. I think some of the former members will tell you this, right, where people used to live down here, we all, we come in, we leave, and even so the first minute you get sworn in, you meet during orientation and then you leave. And you go to your respective sides. And there's very few places where you actually can come together and have a space where you can get to know each other and talk to one another and share ideas. And we're providing a space for that where you can do that. And then you build relationships and you build the trust. And I think the members go, wow, we're actually governing. This is what people send us here to do. And I think that's why our caucus is strong, it's growing, people like what we're doing. And it's because we've got great members who are committed.
Different settings for all of you, but similar challenges, it sounds like. And as we wrap up, I want to ask each of you, just briefly, a simple question here, which is in our theme of citizenship, and as we talk about how to be, all of us, better global citizens and better citizens in our communities, how do you challenge yourself to be a better citizen? And what advice do you give to those around you on that?
Well, I'm challenged by my wife, so I'll leave it with that. And now, I think it's like we're doing tonight, to speak about it openly and to share also the fact that this is never a perfect system and it can always be improved. And I think last but not least, giving back can be very rewarding. We see with our staff, when they can give something back to their local communities, to people in need, they're having a huge element of happiness being from that. And that's why I think it's in a way justifying itself, which is so wonderful about it.
I think by waking up and appreciating that we live in the greatest country in the world. And when I tell Mike, I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I tell them, appreciate how lucky I appreciate how lucky I am to be representing the United States of America and representing a district, and that and how lucky we are that we all stand on the shoulders of giants, like many in the room here tonight, and those who protect our country, our cops, our firefighters, our veterans. And I think if you put it all in perspective, and the key is to just keep everything in perspective and realize that the fights and the skirmishes, a lot of them, if you pull back, realize how it's just in the scope of history, it's not worth the fight. It's actually, we just got to get together and get things done.
Congressman.
I think what you have to do, and Josh is hitting this, is remind people that we do live in a great world, and we live in the greatest country that has existed in that world. And what we have done, we should not be apologizing for our country. We should not be, we should be defending it. We should be inspiring people to recognize what America has done, what it has brought to the world in regards to empowering people and making people's lives better, and never take it for granted. As the son of a career military officer, Silver Star recipient, you know, who shed blood in Korea as well as in World War II. You know, I take that to heart. And when I see kids and I see the next generation and I see folks maybe disengaged from America and say the glory days are behind us, no. The glory days are ahead of us, because the principles and the philosophy that we came here to fight for as members will ignite the world in a better place if we engage, and we're proud of it. Not give up challenging ourselves, not being afraid to show up and challenge ourselves as a country and as members. Keep doing it. Don't give up, because once American citizens give up and they disengage from democracy, that is truly when democracy dies. And it's not going to die on the Problem Solvers Caucus watch, and it's not going to die by the members of Congress that I know in Washington that came here to get things done.
And with that, one more round of applause for our honorees tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Hallie. This is wonderful.
And with that,
it's broken on the top.
Hell, you broke it.
we're going to get some super glue for Congressman Reed. I appreciate Congressman Gottheimer's time. And Chairman, thank you very much for being with us. We want to remind you, of course, that there is the dessert buffet, the dessert situation in the back, so you should all take advantage of that. Thank you for having me, and we will see you all next year. Thanks.
Thanks, Hallie.
Good job, Hallie.
You're the best.
Oh my God. Literally, this is for my last